All right, today we are diving into the incredible life of a true giant from 18th century Jerusalem, Rabbi Israel Yaakov Al-Ghazi. His story is just this amazing mix of brilliant intellect, heartbreaking personal tragedy, and the kind of leadership that literally shaped the holy city.
I mean, look at these titles. We are not talking about just any scholar here. Rabbi Al-Ghazi was the whole package. He was a master of Jewish law, a deep mystic, and an author whose books are still being pored over hundreds of years later. It's pretty incredible.
So that's really the big question, isn't it? How does a guy from a bustling port city in what's now Turkey end up at the absolute pinnacle of the Jewish spiritual world in Jerusalem? Well, it's a journey of faith, of resilience, and just profound leadership.
Okay, so to really wrap our heads around how huge his achievement was, we first have to understand the job he eventually got. So, what in the world does it actually mean to be the Rishon LeZion?
You have to get this. This wasn't just some honorary, symbolic title. No way. The Rishon LeZion was the final word, the ultimate authority on all religious and legal questions for his entire community. He was the spiritual and judicial leader. So, with that in mind, let's jump back to where it all started for him.
So our story kicks off around 1680 in Izmir, Turkey. And you have to picture it. At the time, this was a major hub for Jewish learning and trade in the Ottoman Empire. It was basically the perfect place to grow a brilliant young mind.
He was born into a family of scholars, so he had a head start, and he quickly made a name for himself. By the time he was in his early 50s, he'd already published a major book, and then made that life-changing move to the land of Israel, first stopping in the mystical city of Safed, before finally landing in Jerusalem.
Now here's a really cool little mystery surrounding his first big publication, Hemdat Yamim. See, he's the one who brought this mystical manuscript to print, but nobody knows who actually wrote it. The thing is, the work was so deep and the style was so similar to his own that to this day scholars argue about it. Was he just the editor, or was he secretly the author all along?
Jerusalem wasn't just a place for him to study. You could say it was more like a crucible. This is where he was really forged into a leader, where he was tested by these huge personal and communal challenges that would end up defining who he was and the legacy he left behind.
You can see the transformation right here. Back in Izmir, he was a well-respected local scholar, head of an academy. But in Jerusalem, he stepped onto a completely different stage. We're talking judge in the highest court, head of the famous Kabbalistic yeshiva Beit El. He literally became a pillar for the entire community.
But his rise was also marked by just deep personal pain. In 1737, he got so sick it was nearly fatal. When he recovered, he made a vow to publish one of his own works, Ara de Rabbanan, for the public's benefit. Then, just a few years later, in 1745, he suffered this unimaginable tragedy when his daughter, Simcha, died in a fire.
And through all of that, his dedication to his community just never wavered. His leadership wasn't just theoretical stuff from books. He was tackling real-world problems. That rule about unmarried men might sound strange to us, but it wasn't random. It was a practical step to encourage families and strengthen the community's foundation during some really tough times. This was hands-on leadership.
And so, after decades of scholarship, of principled judgment, of unwavering service to his community through famine and fire, he finally reached the very top. The year 1755, that's when it all culminated, when he was appointed Rishon LeZion of Jerusalem. But his leadership wasn't just in his actions, it was immortalized in his powerful words.
So beyond his decades of leadership, Rabbi Al-Ghazi's most lasting impact really comes from his huge, brilliant collection of writings. I mean, these are books that are still studied in depth today.
His output was just encyclopedic. The guy wrote about pretty much everything in Jewish thought, from the practical laws of how you pray every day to deep Talmudic debates and mystical sermons.
Now, here's a perfect example of his sharp, legal-minded work. He asked a question that seems kind of simple on the surface, but it opens up this really profound idea about what commandments are. The question is, why don't we say a specific blessing for writing a Torah scroll, which is one of the most sacred things you can do?
His answer was basically twofold. First, he says a blessing needs to be on a single, continuous act. Writing a whole Torah scroll? That could take months, even years. There are going to be interruptions. But his second reason? That one goes even deeper.
This idea really gets to the heart of his philosophy. The physical act, the writing of the scroll, that's not the ultimate goal. The goal is what the scroll allows you to do, to fulfill the commandment to learn Torah. That's why a blessing is said every single day on the study of Torah. It's not just about what you do, but why you're doing it.
And what's so crucial?
is that his influence didn't just stop when he passed away in 1756. He basically created a dynasty of leadership. His own son, Rabbi Yom Tov Algazi, followed right in his footsteps and eventually became the Rishon LeZion himself for 25 years, carrying on his father's incredible legacy.
The life of Rabbi Israel Yaakov Algazi really gives us an answer. It's built on this powerful mix of a brilliant mind, an incredible resilience when faced with tragedy, and this unwavering commitment not just to abstract ideas, but to actually, tangibly serving your community. His legacy really teaches us that a meaningful life isn't just about study, it's about action.